Well, hello and welcome to another Edgar Casey ARE Facebook Live. So tonight we are doing a conscious soul discussion with DJ Mike Powers from 94.9 The Point. And we're going to be discussing our practice and what our practice looked like before the pandemic and the quarantine. What does it look like during that time period, and what it's going to look like in the future? You know, all of us, we've changed during this very short period of time. Our lives have changed a lot as corporations, as organizations. You know, the ARE has changed quite a bit in the kind of work that we present and how we present it, as well as the world has changed. And we have changed as individuals, very much so. And our spiritual practice, it has had an effect on our spiritual practice. In positive and different ways. But tonight we'll be taking a look at all of that stuff now. My name is Kathy Lamm. I am the marketing director here at Edgar Casey's ARE. And again, this is Mike Powers from 94.9 The Point. And maybe I'd like to start with just asking Mike. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Mike, what your history is and who you are and what you do here in the marketplace for us.
Well, I'm on 94.9 The Point in the morning. I've been on the radio in this market for over 20 years now. I've worn a lot of different hats. I've worked for a lot of different formats. And, I'm also learning now how to mesh my spiritual life with my regular life, my radio life, my family life. And that's a tough one. That's the thing. That's where we get caught in our journey quite a bit. But seems to be going well, especially during this pandemic, because a lot of, with everything that's going on in the world, a lot of negative things, there has come a lot of positives. And I think a lot of people in the spiritual community have taken this time to really work on themselves, to work on their relationships with their family, their friends, and also with their community, not just locally, but globally. It's been pretty wild, and it's still far from over. We may be opening things up, but it's up to our own intuition and our own feeling to determine when we're ready to step back into the world, because we know a lot of people are kind of pushing this feeling away of what's happening and treating it as something that's not normal. And I think a big part of what we've been talking about over this last month has been that it is our normal. This is all normal right now, and if we treat it as such, we can actually get a lot out of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, you're right. I think that it's given us all an opportunity to really go inward and experience who we are.
Mm.
You know, maybe we started looking for different teachings during that time period. Maybe we started getting rid of a lot of things that no longer serve us emotionally. And, changing our practice, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's reading or, writing or artist or, doing art or anything like that. All of those are spiritual practices.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what your spiritual practice has been up until this point, and then what it has been during this pandemic, and what does that look like?
Well, it's gotten to be where I was very disciplined with myself over the last couple of years. I was intent to sit for a long period of time, especially when it got difficult. Whether that be just contemplation or actually, I'm a little sore, the back hurts a little bit. This doesn't feel right. I'm going to push through this. And during the pandemic, I want to concentrate on that a little bit more, because oftentimes we set expectations for ourselves that are unrealistic, and we hold ourselves to these expectations that might not be serving us in this particular moment and this particular situation. And when I set an expectation that I'm going to be silent all day, I'm going to get through these 6 or 7 books. There's things that I really want to study. I'm going to do more work with the Akashic Records. I have a whole laundry list of spiritual things that I want to try to knock out. But the most spiritual thing I think I've done during this whole pandemic was just kind of spring myself into action and just being in this thing and realizing what my role is during the pandemic, during the lockdown. What can I do to serve? What can I do to serve my family, my friends, my community, and take my radio show and continue to make people laugh, but also to help people wake up to the reality of what is, to actually accept what's going on, whether that's booking more conscious guests, whether that's, timing out a laugh as opposed to maybe this is a little heavy right now. Let's lighten it up. Maybe it's too light right now. Let's make people think. And we've really done that. And I feel like I've done that at home too with my own practice. Instead of being so disciplined and so hard on myself, I decided to just kind of, hey, my daughter needs to watch a couple episodes of Gilmore Girls with me, build some Legos. I don't know what's going on. I'm available. I'm available. I have the time. And it might be something that in the everyday life that I didn't quite have before. Maybe it's why my wife takes care of stuff and figures out how to be an online teacher because she's a teacher. I got to work on the outside a little bit more. And there were times that was even hard for me. I was going, why am I cooking every night? And inside it's saying that, but then I'm going, calm down. Like this is why you meditate. Stupid. This is why you meditate. And so, you catch yourself in those moments and you just spring into action. And it's not perfect, but it's better. It's better than it was before. So it's all of those things. I mean, all the meditation and all the discipline that I handled before or took on before, I'm currently putting into action. Compassion in action. It's
Mhm.
just, being a spiritual warrior in the everyday, whatever that may be. Um, so
Right.
that's it right now.
And then also just serving. I mean, you're
Yeah.
in a situation right now where you're tapped into the community, you're tapped into the root
Mm,
of everything that is going on with all of the people around you. And you're having guests on your shows that are business owners that are stepping up to the plate to
yeah.
serve on a conscious level, that are doing great things in the community. And, that is part of your service, but you also are kind of hearing and feeling the underlying um, concerns and issues and thoughts of that community and
Yeah.
being able to be a part of it and experience it. So that is something that you bring to the table that is unique
But
to
don't you
all of it.
think too, Kathy? I mean, that comes with intuitive listening, and that's something that hasn't always been there for me. You would think I'm in the communications business. I've been there for 20 something years. I'd have that listening down, but my powers, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, was just thinking of the next thing to say, the next what's going to make them laugh, what's going to shock somebody, as opposed to like I'm really listening, going, what is going to serve this conversation? Is it going to be a laugh? Is it going to be um, a teaching that I've heard from somewhere? Or is it just going to be let somebody else have it? Let somebody else have the floor. Let somebody else speak. Let somebody else get their thoughts out. Give them the opportunity to think. You don't have to finish the sentence for them. And that's another great thing. I mean, really, really being able to deep listening. Deep listening is how I like to refer to it. It's taking that step back, that pause, letting somebody have it, and then it's okay to take a breath and get it all out. It doesn't have to come out at 1,000 miles an hour, and it often seems that way, but it's just from being able to really listen.
Right. It's about being present and
Mm,
it's about being conscious. I
yeah,
mean, truly, and mindful, as we move into, going back to work and going back to the normalities or the new normal, as we're all
yeah,
saying now, of living in this world, what does that look like? Being present and
mm,
engaging with people in a different way and being
yeah,
respectful too. We have to step back and be respectful of other people with distancing, with masks. You have no idea what's going on in someone else's life. And,
yeah,
just honoring that for yourself, but also giving them grace and honoring them for their journey and what they're doing as well.
How has your practice changed? I mean, I know I feel like you're going a little bit faster, a little bit harder right now. You're a little bit busier, but you seem like you're in a really great flow state currently. And what would you, of course, meditation you'd attribute it to that, but what else? What else are you doing in your practice?
Right. I mean, meditation is my grounding, and it's just breath. It's
Mm,
bringing me to the present moment through breath. And yeah, we have a lot going on at the ARE. I
yeah,
mean, we've changed a lot of things that we do in a very short period of time,
yeah,
offering webinars online, doing meditations online, doing conversations like this online. We
yeah,
were not an online organization prior to this. Of course, we had offerings online, but it's nothing to the capacity of what we're doing now. So we've all had to shift our mindset, shift our skill set, and kind of step up to the plate. And in
yeah,
that, it takes a lot more work. And so, you talk about meditation and personal meditation practice. I find myself doing frequent 10 to 15-minute meditations throughout the day.
yeah,
I don't think that I've meditated as much in years as I'm meditating currently. And I do it for a lot of reasons, insight to help me, where do we go next? What do we do next? How do we get this information that's so important and valuable to the entire world? How do we get it out quicker, faster, further,
yeah.
especially now during this time of need? And so this year, just having this conversation with you is giving us another platform, another opportunity to spread the intent, the main intent of Edgar Casey and his work.
Yeah.
So I think that's it.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So if you text Kathy and she doesn't get back to you for 10 to 15 minutes now, you know exactly where she is. Now we all know exactly where she is. She's
That's right.
practicing. And I just want to say to everybody that's watching on Facebook Live, whether you're watching on the Edgar Casey page, the points page, or our own personal pages, thank you for being here because oftentimes, you know, you kind of you step into these rooms and you're seeing these these platforms, many different kinds, people doing live music, people doing live meditations, whatever. Everybody's putting themselves out there in a good way. And I think it's great because that's everybody's finding their own form of meditation and their way of contributing. We've seen so many, not only local musicians, but the biggest musicians in the world go live on Facebook over these last 7 weeks and be raw and uncut and vulnerable, and explaining the stories behind their songs. That's been pretty cool too, and we wouldn't have the insight and the connection that we now have with a lot of these artists and musicians. And it's really quite beautiful if you just shift, just make that small shift from going, man, this stinks, we're at home, we're not watching any live music out and about, we're not going to bars, we're not commiserating with each other, but we really are, we're connecting on a completely different level. And this thing could really make social media a little more conscious because I believe we needed that. We were just kind of scrolling by each other before. We weren't really giving everybody the full attention that art and conversation and ideas deserved, and everybody deserves the same amount of attention. And just by people showing up and watching this live video, they know inside. We all know inside it's there. You've already had your awakening. Now we're just trying to get through it together, help each other out a little bit. And that's a beautiful thing that's come to light during this lockdown, this pandemic, or whatever it is we're calling it now, phase one.
Phase one, yes, the
Phase one.
quarantine. So, the last time that we talked here on the page, we had talked a little bit about the shadow and in embracing your shadow side. And, I just wanted to go a little bit further into that conversation if we can. A
Yeah,
lot of people think that, the first thing that they think is when you speak about shadow is like a sinister thing, is a terrible aspect of you. But the truth is that your shadow side is just as important to you as your spiritual side. And a lot of times we get on our spiritual journey, like you have been on a spiritual path. And as you said, you open and you close your heart, and maybe during those time periods of closing your heart, maybe it was your shadow that you were actually embracing during that time period.
Yeah.
And when we talk about that, and when Edgar Casey spoke about it, he spoke about, jealousy, bitterness, hatred, those negative things that we have, anxiety, fear, all of those negative feelings that we have as spiritual. Those of us who are on a spiritual path, we sometimes attempt to deny those aspects
Yeah.
of ourselves. We want to step back from them. We want to suppress them and say they're not part of who we are. As we're moving out of this pandemic and we're talking about judgment in itself. I mean, how many times have you been into a store and you're like, oh, that person's not wearing a mask. Let me just judge them on
Yesterday.
what, right. Why
Yeah.
are they not wearing a mask? What are they
Yeah.
doing? So step back and look at yourself. And as a spiritual being, you kind of want to walk away from those feelings or shy away from them, but they're just as important aspect of you as the other feelings that you have. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And you said it best. It's going to stay around the more you push it away. We've all gone down that road, especially when we're feeling super spiritually high. We've all been there. We read something that sent us to a whole nother spiritual level. We're up here and we don't want to come down. We don't want anybody to disrupt that. So it's almost like we crawl into our own little imaginary cave in the Himalayas, and we are trying to escape just so we can stay up there. And especially during this pandemic, we've had to sit with ourselves many's a time, and the things that come up aren't so lovely, and we all have that. And that's where I started to be okay with that shadow side of myself. Be like, no, that's not who I am. That's not, yeah, oh yeah, that is who I am. That's a part of me. Just as there is good, there has to be evil. Just as there is light, there has to be dark. We wouldn't know one without the other. So if you don't honor these dark thoughts, they're going to take a hold of you because you're pushing them away, and your ego is going to end up winning. Your dark thoughts are going to end up taking over, and they've taken over for all of us at one point in time. But now, if you're noticing them and you're loving them as part of who you are, you have a little better control, moving forward and staying present and going, oh, there it is. That's that feeling that, I'm being a little sarcastic right now. Oh, I'm a little pissed off right now at this guy with no mask. But if I'm catching it and I'm noticing it and I'm loving that and I'm going, well, I don't know his predicament. And you start to ask yourself real questions, because that's back to the listening, not just to others, but to yourself, to your inner voice, and not getting lost in the voice in the head, the ego, trying to push you into some kind of fight with. At the end of the day, the fight is really just going to be with yourself. It has nothing to do with the guy with no mask or the person that wronged you. If you don't honor these feelings as part of who you are, you're going to be stuck right where you are in your journey, and you're going to end up inching yourself backwards, and you're going to go backwards and not even notice it, because
Right.
you're like, oh, I'm being a spiritual being. No, you're you're playing the role, you're projecting a spiritual being.
Right.
But what's really happening is you're turning into a son of a, what, yeah, that's what's really happening. And
That's
nobody really wants to be with you. Oh, he's the spiritual guy with a really terrible attitude.
right. That's awesome.
It's
Yes, it
funny.
is.
It's funny, but
It's true. But
hard to dance.
Edgar Casey said you find yourself in others, see
Yeah.
others as they pass by, you see yourself. So you mirror yourself in everything that you see and you do. The other thing too is if we're not feeling these emotions or processing these emotions, that energy gets stuck in our body and it
Yeah.
causes dis-ease within the body, which is disease within the body. So we have to process the negative emotions just like we process positive emotions, and
Yeah.
give ourselves a little bit of grace and give ourselves a little bit of comfort and compassion to say, you know what, it's okay. it's okay that I got mad in the car on the way on the interstate and this person almost hit me and I screamed.
Yeah.
That's okay. So I think that that's important too. And just especially now coming out of this and going into a store and reintegrating ourselves back into society, into daily life, we're going to be experiencing a little bit more of how people judge themselves and judge others. So
Mm.
I think it's something that we need to be aware of.
Yeah,
So,
as you're moving forward and you are projecting a spiritual essence, the person, the guy with no mask on, who's just coughing his way through Food Lion or whatever it is, he's projecting something too. Remember that he's projecting, I'm a tough guy. I don't need this. I don't believe in it, and next thing you know, you're caught in this dance of like, I want you to see me as this, and you want me to see you as that. But at the end of the day, we're really not seeing each other as human beings, as spiritual beings. So it's an interesting dance. It really, really is. And we're all going to have to kind of push forward through this and find that balance of what we're comfortable with and show a lot of grace in the process. And it's no different, if we really think about it, Kathy, it's no different than what we've been trying to do over the past X amount of years. That's a part of the practice, is learning to sit with yourself and love yourself first, and fix the things inside of you that you think need a little bit of work. And in turn, it makes it so much better, the energy that you put out for other people to be around. And it's going to be the same thing during this pandemic. You're going to come into contact with people that are going to pull you out of that. What are you going to do to pull them into a space of love and energy and grace? It's going to be
mhm,
a lot of grace.
right. And, setting your own energy, setting and then sending that energy out. One of the easiest ways that we can shift energy is through our own expression. You ever walk through a grocery store and just smile and
uh,
see the energy shift as you lock eyes with people and you smile at them
yeah.
and you go through the store. And then you've also been through the store where everybody's mad and you're like, "Ooh, I'm starting to pick up this energy. I'm getting really mad and
Yeah.
these aisles are too small and the carts are too big and that sort of thing." So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too, because I had an experience when I was younger. This used to happen quite a bit. My 9-year-old now, Claire, when she was a toddler, and you put them in the cart and they're sitting in the front and they're just watching everything, and everything is fascinating. And she would always, she's the happiest baby in the entire world, and she still is. Um, she'd be smiling at everybody, and she would always get a smile back, and you would see somebody's day turn around. And then all of a sudden, every once in a while, wouldn't happen very often. And for those of you with young kids, I'm sure you have the same story. They'll smile at somebody, and that somebody will not give anything back. And I just remember her, like, all of a sudden, there she is, happy little Claire, and person not smile back, and just just befuddled by what's going on with this person. And in her mind, I'm going, like, she's probably saying, this person has a lot of work to do on themselves. So I believe those were her first words. This person has a lot of work to do on themselves. And that's the deal. That's the deal. They just weren't ready in that particular moment, or they just had something going on inside of them in that particular moment that they weren't ready to show love. And we said it last time, if you don't have any love inside for yourself, how can you give it to somebody else? If you don't have a dozen oranges handy and somebody wants an orange, you cannot give them an orange.
that's
So
right.
it's as simple as that. So there's going to be a lot of uh encounters and interactions out there.
Mhm.
It's up to
Yeah.
us. This is why we do it, guys. This is why we spend the time quiet and meditating. This is the work. This is what it's for.
And so starting that first act of self-love is just going inward
Hmm.
and connecting with the spirit, the source energy within. And I think that that's where Edgar Casey has said all of the knowledge is coming from the doing. So sitting and doing meditation and experiencing just by going inward will give you the information that you need. You
Yeah.
know, it aligns the body, mind, and spirit. And so we can start there, which is one of the reasons why we started the daily noon meditations here at the area. And that's how I think you and I met as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. You
Uh,
got done with a noon meditation, and then I sent you a Facebook request and a very long message. And then you sent me one back. And then here we are, very
right.
fast friends. And we immediately had a really great chemistry on the air on my radio show. And we took it to a bunch of different platforms and tried some things. And we thought to ourselves, like, let's just go on and talk to people. If they get a teaching out of it, great. If we get one out of it, even better. But let's just go on and talk and have these conversations and be vulnerable and be honest. And so many times when we are looking for spiritual teachings, we're looking almost at like a hierarchy, and we wanted to try to be a little something different and pull it down and say, as two imperfect beings trying our best to make our way through the world. And let's talk about that together. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about everyday life. Let's talk about how we feel about what's going on in this pandemic. And again, with all the bad things happening, there's been way more beautiful things going on in
Yeah,
the world. Maybe it's not reported on the news, but you can't expect it to be. It's really happening though.
I know it is beautiful. I drove out of my parking lot the other day of my office, and there's a church here at the end of the parking lot. And it was lunchtime, and they had tables set up, and they were passing out food. And I just thought, wow,
Mm,
look at the humanity that has
yeah.
come forward in this time. And it
Mm,
really just made me stop and take a breath for a moment and just be so thankful that the situation was created to demonstrate that humanity. And it's
yeah.
happening everywhere. That's just one little small piece. It's
Yeah.
happening everywhere.
It's quite beautiful. And the thing that, like, I think we need to work with when we see things like that, oftentimes we can be, as opposed to enjoying a beautiful moment and embracing, like, look at all this good that's happening in the world. Oftentimes we turn on ourselves too, because we're going, well, maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm not. How come I'm not that charitable? Why am I not there?
Mhm.
And that brings us right back to the beginning of our conversation today. It's, you do what you can do. You do what comes naturally. It could be, again, in the form of some kind of art. It could be just going to work. It could be just stepping up your game as a parent, as a brother, as a sister, as a father, a daughter, whatever it is. Just, find your groove, find what feels comfortable, and take on what you can take on. It's not, you don't have to put it all on your shoulders.
Mhm.
There's enough of us to balance it out. And I know that, like, that's a big teaching of Edgar Casey and many spiritual teachers. It's, what, I might be going at like 80 miles an hour right now, and you might be putting in 20, but eventually you're going to be at 99 and I'm going to be at 1, and I'm going to need you. and
That's
and and the scales always end up here. They
that's right.
And it doesn't feel like that sometimes, but they do always end up balancing
Mhm.
out.
And the reason that we are here as an organization, Edgar Casey's ARE, I mean, we've been here for almost 100 years now. But the reason that we're here is because we have the tools and resources available to people to help them, through any moment in life, anything they're struggling with, whether it's a challenge or an opportunity or just growth or just finding themselves. We are here and we have those tools and resources available.
Yeah.
And so that's really what the readings bring to the table, even all of this time later. We talk about tools in our toolboxes and looking for all of the things around us. I mean, you have a shelf of books back there from a lot of different,
Oh boy.
lot of different,
there.
right.
Sure.
That's your toolbox.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
what we
run
were
through them one
talking.
night.
Yeah. So I do have a question for Lynn. And She says, when our ego says negative thoughts, is overriding it with a positive thought better?
You take that one first.
Okay. Well, what I would say is, you know, that would be the simple answer. However, it doesn't always work. We can do that. We can try to force ourselves to think positive thoughts. Our thoughts are not outside of us. We have 100% control of them. So we can change our thoughts at any moment in time. But the easiest way to change your thought is return to your breath. When you breathe in to your chest, you bring yourself back into your body. You come back into the present moment. You know, oxygen in the body makes you feel a little euphoric. So it returns you to that stillness. So I say that when you get so far out of ego and you can catch yourself and you see it and your thoughts are running away, step one, return to your breath. And step two, if you can focus on a positive thought, force yourself to smile and focus on a positive thought, but do it with breath work.
Yeah.
Breathe it in and out. Breathe in positive energy, release negative energy. That's my way of thinking.
Yeah, and mine is not it's not very much different because at first I'll go to the breath, but as you know, you advance in your practice, contemplation becomes a very big part of it. And you know, I was feeling quite a bit of anxiety last week, and we talked about it. And I thought, I was like, "Wow, where is this coming from?" I've been pretty fine in the pandemic. You know, I feel like I've been in a good flow state. What am I pushing away? And it took me a couple of days to sit with my breath, and then all of a sudden, I went, "Oh my God, it's the fact that we're coming out of it, and I don't know." I'm not quite sure what to do with it as a husband and a father and a friend and an employee. I wasn't quite sure where I was going, and my answer came very simple. It was just this is right here. This is it. This is it. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? I mean, went to bed last night. The beaches were closed. Tonight we're talking. They're going to be open this weekend. You know, who knows all the things that are going to change that are outside of my control. So, you know, I just try to get real present and understand where is this coming from. And the ego's another it's tough because it's always in a competition. It's always looking to win something. And if you can notice that, if you notice that, it makes it a little bit easier. It's almost like, okay, that's just the ego kicking in. It doesn't change, it doesn't go away right away. But if you notice what it is and you can pinpoint that it's the ego trying to take over, because competition is fine. But if you are in a flow state, like a tennis match, you ever watch a really good tennis match and back and forth and back and forth. It's almost like they're more into the flow of the game, the art of the game, as opposed to winning the game. Winning the game, yes, it's a part of it. But when you're trying to win out of ego and your ego says, well, I will lose my status if I lose this game, if I lose this argument, then you're losing. Then you're losing to it. But if you notice that's what it is, things start to flow a little bit easier because we all got them, we all have it, and they're not going, the ego is not going anywhere. So how do we use it to serve us and benefit us? And that's the shadow side too, which you talk about quite a
Yeah,
bit.
that's exactly right. And you know, embracing your ego is just as important, you know, as your shadow, because it is essentially your shadow side. And ego is not necessarily a negative word. It's not. It's ego protects us in some situations. Ego
Mhm.
gives us clarity in others. So it's just keeping yourself in balance and in check. Like
Yeah,
you said, it's always
yeah,
about that balancing, you know, and that balancing
yeah,
of
because it could very much take over most of our being, and it does for a lot of people. They thrive off ego, and it's not even their fault. I mean, I thrived off ego, you know, for it dominated me for a very, very long time. And when it starts to dissolve and you can notice it that it's there, you become a lot more tolerable with people and you're willing to share with people. That's you're not sharing because it's the right thing to do, or it's like, oh, I have to do this because then I'll be a nice guy. You're just sharing because that's what you do. You know, there's doing because you're trying to be something and project something. It's like being charitable and saying I'm charitable. No, you just charitable. You don't have to announce it to the world. And
Right.
that's when the ego starts to, when you feel it dissolving, you can actually just kind of be in all these things. You could be all these things that you want to be without having the ego take it over.
Right. Well, Mike, we appreciate you so much for what you are doing
Thank
for
you.
our community, for the world. Our voices are all strong and important, and we need to step up and start talking about some of this stuff like you're doing on the air. So, greatly appreciate you and
Thank
your
you.
time and the time that you spend here with us and dedicated to us. And I just want to say that we're looking forward to another chat another
Yeah.
time soon.
Yeah,
So,
this is great. And also too, as you know, we move forward with these things, we do welcome questions, and we don't claim to have the answers, but we can start the discussion. And oftentimes it will be a 50-50 mutual benefit for us as the people hosting the conversation, and hopefully for you as well.
yes, I agree. And that's what this is about. It's about opening an honest and discussion and conversation on the page to have people engaged.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Mike.
Thank
We,
you very much, and look forward to talking again soon.
yeah, me too. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.